Good morning and welcome everyone to our AGM. I am Cheryl Geisel, President of the College of Licensed Practical Nurses of Manitoba. I want to remind those in the room that the AGM is being video recorded. The video will be publicly accessible on the Clpnm website and YouTube channel to promote transparency and accessibility of the proceedings to all registrants, regardless of their location. We'll now call to order at 11:30. I will now call the meeting to order. I would like to welcome all of you to our 71st Annual General Meeting. Bylaw Article 11.4 states, "A quorum for any annual general meeting or special general meeting of the college shall be the number of members on the register of practicing licensed practical nurses who attend the meeting." We have a quorum present. And I'll ask for the credentials report. Oh. She can read it out? Okay.
Voting 13, non-voting 20, total attendees 33.
Okay. Thank you. Sure. Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve the credentials report?
That the credentials report as presented be adopted.
Jody LaFrance, District 1. I will second the motion.
It is moved and seconded that the credentials report be approved as presented. Is there any debate? All those in favor of the motion, raise your flag. Those opposed, raise your flag. The affirmative has it, and the motion is adopted. The next order of business is to approve the rules of order and procedure, as distributed and printed in the journal. There are also copies on the table. Before we begin, I would like to draw your attention to these rules. If you would like to speak, I ask that you approach the microphone, and once I have acknowledged you, you may state your name and proceed with your question.
Lori Smythe, District 1. I move that the rules of order and procedure be approved as distributed.
Lindsay Marinick, District 2. I second the motion.
It is moved and seconded that the rules of order and procedure be approved as distributed. Is there any discussion? All in favor, raise your flag. Those opposed, raise your flag. The affirmative has it, and the rules of order and procedure are approved. I would ask that we follow these rules. An agenda was distributed at the registration desk. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Please rise for the playing of the national anthem. You may be seated. I'd now like to introduce the head table. We have Jennifer Breton, Executive Director, Vera Chernecki, Parliamentarian, Tracy Olson, Consultant, Professional Nursing Practice, and Tracy will also be acting as our timekeeper for the meeting. Vicki Bering, Executive Operations Coordinator, and Vicki will act as the minute keeper, and Pamela Dupuy, External Auditor. I would also like to introduce the current Board of Directors of the College. Please stand when your name is called and remain standing until the entire board has been introduced. District 1, Joy de la France, LPN. District 2, Patricia Smythe, LPN. District 2, Elisa Wiebe, LPN. District 2, Camille Martineau, LPN. District 2, Rodney Hines, LPN. District 2, Lindsay Marinick, LPN. And our public representatives, Tricia Conroy, Judy Harapiak, Diwa Marcelino, Darlene Barb, Susan Swan. Thank you for all of the work you have done over this past year. I would now like to introduce the college staff and would ask that you stand and be recognized when I call your name. Jennifer Breton, Executive Director, Buffy Babb, Business Manager, Dina Bering, Registration Coordinator, Victoria Bering, Executive Operations Coordinator, Gail Bialik, Receptionist, Carrie Funk, Deputy Registrar, Kennedy Gagauchik, Administrative Assistant, Kathy Halligan, Consultant Credentials Assessments, Renata Neufeld, Consultant Policy, Governance and Communications, Tracy Olson, Consultant Professional Nursing Practice, Brenda Wolgemuth, Consultant Education Programs Evaluation. I would also like to welcome our special guest today, Laura Panteluk, Executive Director and Registrar of the College of Registered Psychiatric Nurses of Manitoba, Marie Edwards, President of the College of Registered Nurses of Manitoba, and Suzanne Mochuk, Director of Registration and Professional Conduct for the College of Registered Nurses of Manitoba. And of course, I'd like to welcome all of you to the AGM of the College of Licensed Practical Nurses of Manitoba. It is a pleasure to have an opportunity to meet with board and committee members, staff, registrants, and stakeholders together in one room to talk about the activities of the college and our shared goal of serving and protecting the public interest. Over the past year, the board of the College of Licensed Practical Nurses of Manitoba completed a strategic planning exercise which resulted in a renewed commitment to our existing vision, mission, and values, and the adoption of 4 new strategic priorities for the college, which are to develop the profession's capacity to meet the future needs of Manitobans, support Manitobans' access to quality health care by addressing barriers to full scope of practice, enhance effective self-regulation in the public interest, and strengthen engagement and collaboration with stakeholders. These priorities were adopted by the board in order to position both the profession and the college to respond to changing environments, changing needs, and evolving expectations. Many of the college's current activities are aligned with these strategic priorities. You will hear about these in more detail during the Executive Director's report on the current college activities. We will now move on to the appointment of the scrutineers. The following board members have been appointed to act as scrutineers for the meeting. Please stand when your name is called. Judy Harapiak, Head Scrutineer. Susan Swan, she will be standing by the door, as well as Diwa Marcelino, who will be standing by the door. Please ensure that you raise your voting flag when voting and wait until the scrutineers have acknowledged your vote before lowering your flag. Tracy Olson will act as timekeeper. She will raise the yellow card after your 2 minutes are up. After 10 minutes, she will raise the red card to signify that debate for the question being considered has expired. Those who are eligible to vote must turn their voting flags over to one of the scrutineers at the door before exiting the room. Also, a reminder that if there is voting on a motion on the floor, the doors will be closed and members will not be allowed to exit or enter the room at that time. On each table, you will find copies of the 2016 annual report. We will be referring to this for the review of the financial statements later. Jennifer Breton, Executive Director, will now give an update of current college activities.
Thanks, Cheryl. Today I'd like to present the 2016 Operations Report for the College of Licensed Practical Nurses of Manitoba. As you know, the college is responsible for governing the practical nursing profession in the best interest of the public. We carry out our activities in accordance with the Licensed Practical Nurses Act, and we are accountable to our moral owners, the public. The Board of Directors is responsible for the governance of the college. They set the strategic direction through the mission, vision, values, and end statements. The board conducts college business through the executive director and college committees. Committees include governance, public representatives, education approval, investigation, and discipline committees. The executive director is responsible for achieving the college's end statements and operationalizing the board's strategic direction. A highly competent team of professionals conduct the work of college. I'd like to thank each of you. You're an amazing group of people. Your dedication and commitment to the mandate of the college is appreciated. Our mandate, as per the Licensed Practical Nurses Act, is to conduct our affairs in the best interest of the public. Our core values set the background and context for all the work we do. End statements are derived from the college's functions as outlined in the Act and regulations. In the remaining slides, I'll review specific program areas within the college that help us to meet our ends. In 2015 and 2016, the board conducted strategic planning sessions. In 2016, they adopted a new strategic plan with 4 priorities. Clpnm operations are responsible for carrying out activities that achieve these goals. Priority 1 relates to developing the profession's capacity to meet the needs of Manitobans. We work with stakeholders to identify practical nursing workforce requirements. We also work to identify barriers to licensure and develop strategies to address them. Priority 2 relates to supporting access to health care by addressing barriers to full scope of practice. Operations work with stakeholders to enhance the understanding of the current entry level and full scope of the competencies of the profession. Priority 3 relates to enhancing effective self-regulation. We work internally and externally to develop strategies that enhance efficient and effective practical nursing regulation in the public interest. This includes collaborating with multiple stakeholders locally, nationally, and internationally. Priority 4 relates to strengthening our engagement with stakeholders. As you'll see in the following slides, the Clpnm collaborates regularly with government, other health regulators, education partners, employers, nurses, students, and members of the public. In May 2016, the Clpnm successfully implemented computer-based testing for the National Entry to Practice examination. Along with our exam company, ASI, and other provincial regulators, the Clpnm worked to ensure a smooth transition from paper and pencil testing to computer-based testing. The national pass rate in the initial computer-based testing window was 91.5%. The national pass rate for those who wrote by paper and pencil in 2015 was comparable at 91.7%. Delivery of the CPNRE by computer has enabled the test to be offered at more sites at more flexible dates and times. In 2016, the Clpnm conducted a full program evaluation of Assiniboine Community College's Practical Nursing Refresher Program, as well as the Diploma in Practical Nursing Program offered by Université de Saint-Boniface. The Clpnm also collaborated with the Government of Manitoba and Assiniboine Community College to transition the Practical Nurse Qualification Recognition Program from pilot to its current program status. In 2016, the Clpnm completed 3 multi-year projects that resulted in the publishing of documents that assist practical nurses, employers, and other stakeholders in understanding the competencies of the practical nursing profession in Manitoba. The Nursing Competencies document provides information about the competencies that fall within the scope of the practical nursing profession in Manitoba. It includes entry-level competencies as well as others that may be developed throughout an entire career. The document is meant to serve as a general guide for LPNs, employers, and other stakeholders and must be interpreted in the context of other documents that guide and limit LPN practice. The entry-level competencies document articulates the competencies that today's LPNs will have upon entry into practice in Manitoba. These competencies reflect the theoretical and practical education, knowledge, skills, judgment, and attitudes required of beginning practitioners to provide safe, competent, and ethical nursing care. The CLPNM receives many questions about whether a practice environment or a nursing task is appropriate for LPNs. The Determining Appropriate LPN Practice document is a flowchart meant to assist LPNs and employers with these types of questions. All of these resources can be found on the CLPNM website. In 2016, the CLPNM continued its work on the eventual transition to the Regulated Health Professions Act. Most of our efforts were focused on our collaborations with other health regulators to help define a standardized consultation process. We've also worked closely with our nursing colleagues at the College of Registered Nurses of Manitoba and the College of Registered Psychiatric Nurses of Manitoba to collaborate on areas of common interest, such as nursing practice guidelines, interpretations, and definitions. We believe this work sets the stage for a better transition in future. And finally, in 2016, the CLPNM membership-approved bylaws were implemented and policies were reviewed for alignment. During the implementation, small revisions were made to improve clarity and solidify the intent of the bylaws. Copies of this work can be found on your table. And the CLPNM does not carry out its regulatory activities in isolation. We work with multiple stakeholders locally and nationally. The CLPNM's participation in the Canadian Council of Practical Nurse Regulators provides an opportunity to advance harmonization across Canadian jurisdictions and to share information and approaches specific to practical nursing regulation in Canada. The CLPNM's membership in the National Council of State Boards of Nursing provides a forum for learning about and contributing to best practices in nursing regulation across North America. Through its participation in the Manitoba Alliance of Health Regulatory Colleges, the CLPNM also collaborates with a network of local health regulators to address matters related to public protection in Manitoba. We also continued our work with nursing regulators across Canada in support of the National Nursing Assessment Service. So the CLPNM works closely with its partners in provincial nursing regulation, the College of Registered Nurses of Manitoba and the College of Registered Psychiatric Nurses of Manitoba. Together, the three colleges are collaborating to provide consistent guidelines for nurses and employers on professional practice matters common to all nursing professions, and to achieve consistency, where possible, in approaches to implementing the Regulated Health Professions Act. The collaborative work of the three nursing regulators in 2016 included developing joint practice resources for nurses on medical assistance in dying, developing joint guidance for nurses and employers on the distinction between delegation, assignment, and teaching, exploring common standards and processes for the recognition of post-basic education programs, and along with the College of Pharmacists of Manitoba and the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Manitoba, developing shared guidance for healthcare professionals aimed at removing barriers to timely and appropriate access to medication for rural, remote, and underserved populations. I'll now discuss the program areas related to registration. As per the Licensed Practical Nurses Act, the CLPNM maintains an active practicing register, a graduate practical nurse register, and a student practical nurse register. At the end of the 2016 registration year, which is November 30th, 3,401 LPNs were registered on the active practicing register. Throughout the year, the CLPNM registered 217 graduate practical nurses and 406 practical nursing students. The CLPNM also receives applications for registration from nurses educated outside of Manitoba. The credential assessment process evaluates applications from internationally educated nurses, IENs, Canadian nursing graduates, and LPNs licensed in other Canadian jurisdictions. In 2016, 314 IEN applicant files were held by the CLPNM. 208 files remained opened at the end of 2016, meaning they were not ready for a final registration decision. These applicants may have outstanding documents to submit, or they may have been referred for further assessment or education. 62 files were closed in 2016, while 33 applicants became LPNs. The majority of our credential assessment applicants were IENs from the Philippines. You'll note that the number of new applications received dropped drastically in 2015. This is a result of a policy and process change, including the implementation of the National Nursing Assessment Service in late 2014, and the application numbers are slowly rising again. The endorsement process is used when an LPN registered in another Canadian jurisdiction wishes to become registered in Manitoba. The process supports the objectives of the Labour Mobility Chapter of Canada's Agreement on Internal Trade. In 2016, the CLPNM received 110 endorsement applications, which is higher than the roughly 70 applications we usually see each year. The majority of applicants were from Ontario and Alberta. 52 files remained opened at the end of the year, while 19 files were closed. In 2016, 72 endorsement applicants became LPNs. As per the posted legitimate objectives, 62 endorsement applicants required further education and had conditions applied to their registration. This is an increase in the number of conditions applied in previous years and may be reflective of the rising number of applications coming from Ontario. It's very common for applicants from this jurisdiction to require education in physical health assessment and/or IV therapy in order to achieve the minimum entry to practice competencies expected of a Manitoba LPN. As you can see in this slide, there's been a slight upward trend in the active practicing register since 2003. So although the data represented here only goes back to 2003, the number of LPNs have been increasing slowly but steadily since 1999. On average, there's been approximately a 2% increase per year. If we look at the overall increase from 2003 to 2016, there's now 775 more LPNs in the Manitoba workforce. In 2016, 33% of Manitoba's LPN population was of retirement age or nearing retirement age. For this slide, I'm saying retirement age is 50 and up. The teal, the gray, and the dark blue sections make up 67% of the chart, and those sections represent LPNs aged 18 to 49. So this slide offers another way to compare age distribution from 2006 to 2016. This slide compares the number of LPNs at or nearing retirement age in 2006 and again in 2016. For our purposes, we'll assume 50 and over can be considered nearing the retirement age. In 2006, so that's the first bar, there were 2,859 LPNs on the register. 1,179, or 41% of these LPNs, were nearing retirement age. That's the orange section of the first bar. In 2016, the second bar, there were 3,401 LPNs on the register. 1,125, or 33% of these LPNs, were nearing retirement age. So these figures show that overall, the LPN population is younger now than in previous years. So let's review outward migration. In 2016, 196 individuals left LPN practice. This is a bit higher than the average 175 resignations that we've seen in recent years. The median age of those who leave LPN practice in Manitoba has been incrementally decreasing over the past few years. In 2016, 54% of the 196 who left practice were not yet of retirement age. This is not surprising because we know that retirement is only one reason people leave the register. Other reasons include personal health issues, moving to another province, or changing professions. In 2016, CLPNM received requests for 127 verifications of registration from 120 current and former LPNs. Verifications of registration are requested when a member is seeking licensure with an LPN regulator in another province or with another health profession in Manitoba. So the data can tell us a little bit about what our registrants plan to do when they leave us. Verifications are not a precise indicator of what people do after they leave, but they do provide some useful context to consider. Of the 127 verifications of registration completed in 2016, 46 verifications were sent to the College of Registered Nurses of Manitoba. 61 verifications were sent to nursing regulators in other Canadian jurisdictions, and 19 verifications were sent to nursing regulators outside of Canada. So this slide digs deeper into the resignation data from 2014 to 2016. In viewing the people who are under 55 years of age and choose to resign from the register, we can see that in 2014 and 2015, those who were originally educated outside of Manitoba tend to leave practice before the age of retirement more often than Manitoba-educated LPNs. The Manitoba educated LPNs are the blue bars. 83% of those who resigned and who were originally from out of the country, the teal bars, were not yet of retirement age. 73% of those who resigned and were originally from out of the province were not yet of retirement age. So this data set might suggest that those who move to Manitoba from other jurisdictions may be more likely to use that experience to enable them to move on to other provinces or to another profession. So among those who resigned and who were originally from Manitoba, the blue bars, we're also seeing an increase in the proportion who left practice before they were of retirement age. This fits with the trends we were seeing discussed on the previous slide regarding the number of LPNs who completed additional education and subsequently joined the registered nurse profession. Before being eligible to enter the profession, graduates must successfully write the Canadian Practical Nurse Registration Examination. The CLPNM is responsible for overseeing all activities related to the CPNRE in Manitoba. We also work closely with our Canadian counterparts to develop the blueprint for the CPNRE. In 2016, 94% of all Manitoba writers passed the CPNRE. This number is higher than last year, but in line with numbers noted historically. The Manitoba candidates who were also internationally educated nurses continue to perform very well on the CPNRE. The exam success rate for internationally educated Manitoba candidates increased from 63% in 2012 to 94% in 2016. This remains significantly higher than the IEN national rate, which over the last 3 years averaged 54%. The consistent rise in exam success rates in Manitoba IENs coincides with the implementation of the Clinical Competence Assessment and the PNQR Bridging Program. The program area dedicated to the evaluation of practical nursing education provides instrumental support to the Education Approval Committee. This is a legislated committee that's responsible for evaluating practical nursing education programs against the legislated standards of education. The committee comprehensively evaluates each education program at least once every 5 years. In 2016, programs were offered at Assiniboine Community College, University College of the North, and Université de Saint-Boniface. In 2016, the CLPNM completed the first full evaluation of Université de Saint-Boniface's Diploma in Practical Nursing program and granted the school a 2-year conditional approval status. In 2016, the CLPNM began a full evaluation of ACC's Practical Nurse Refresher Program, and that review was completed in 2017. The Practical Nurse Qualification Recognition Program began as a pilot program established through a partnership between the CLPNM, Manitoba Health, and Assiniboine Community College. The program is designed to bridge identified education and competency gaps of internationally educated nurses applying for registration with the CLPNM. The 5-year pilot ended March 31st, 2016. Funding for the program was confirmed November 2016. The Professional Nursing Practice Program area provides consultation, information, and support to practical nurses, employers, educators, and to the public. It also provides consultation and education on the legislation, policies, and standards that guide the profession. The department regularly collaborates with nursing practice consultants in the province and across the country to identify and work on common initiatives. This program area also includes the oversight of the CLPNM's Continuing Competence Program, the CCP. The objective of the CCP is to ensure that LPNs retain and continuously build upon their knowledge, skills, and judgment. Participation is monitored through an annual audit. Each year, the CLPNM randomly selects 10% of its active practicing registrants for the CCP audit. The audit conducted in 2016 reviewed registrants' CCP participation and compliance for 2015. 322 registrants were audited. 314 of those were found to meet the requirements of the program by the end of the audit. 8 registrants had their active practicing registration canceled for non-compliance with the program. The mandate of the CLPNM is to regulate the profession in the public interest. The Act requires the Executive Director to refer complaints regarding registrants and former registrants to the CLPNM's Investigation Committee. The committee may attempt to resolve the complaint informally or refer it to the Discipline Committee. The college investigates complaints, supports and enforces standards of practice, and intervenes when a registrant's practice or conduct poses a risk to the public. In 2016, 26 complaints were filed against 25 LPNs. This number represents less than 1% of all CLPNM registrants. The complaints submitted relate to incompetent practice and/or professional misconduct. The majority of complaints were submitted by employers, followed by colleagues, the executive director of the CLPNM, and members of the public. Most complaints are satisfactorily dealt with at the investigation committee level. This final slide lists the various decisions the investigation committee made in 2016. Individual cases result in multiple decisions, therefore the number of decisions exceeds the number of complaints. In 2016, the committee directed 14 formal investigations. 26 registrants had conditions applied to their license, surrendered their active practicing registration, or had their licenses suspended in connection with the committee's investigation. 18 registrants entered agreements or were directed to remediation and/or were subject to further monitoring or assessments by the CLPNM. 1 case resulted in a public censure, and 5 cases were found to have no merit or no evidence and resulted in no further action. So in closing, I'd like to say that throughout the course of our work, the public interest remains at the forefront of our minds, and I would like to sincerely thank the CLPNM board members and committee members and staff for their commitment to the college and their respect for the privilege of self-regulation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I would now like to introduce Pamela Dupuy, CPA, CA, with BDO Canada, who was appointed as the CLPNM's external auditor for 2016. Pamela will present the 2016 audited statement.
Thank you, Cheryl. Within the annual report, you'll find, starting on page 26, possibly, I'm going to start at page 27. You have the audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2016. As Cheryl mentioned, BDO Canada LLP has been appointed auditor for the fiscal year ended December 31, 2016. On page 27, you'll have the independent auditor's report. It is addressed to the board of directors because the board appointed BDO as auditor. It's for the year ended December 31st, 2016. The college follows Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations, and I'll read to you the opinion paragraph. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the College of Licensed Practical Nurses of Manitoba as at December 31st, 2016, and the results of its operations and its cash flows for the year that ended in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. It is a standard or unmodified auditor's report, which is what the college would desire, and is dated April 10th, 2017, which is the date the Board of Directors approved the draft financial statements. On the following page, page 28, pardon me, you have the Statement of Financial Position, which is also called the balance sheet. It presents a snapshot of the assets, liabilities, and net assets of the college as at December 31st, 2016, with comparative amounts for December 31st, 2015. Total assets at December 31, 2016, $3,038,000, previous year $2,770,000. That includes cash in bank, $1,331,000, a small prepaid expense of $6,000, investments, $1,097,000, and capital and intangible assets at $602,000. So the capital and intangible assets, just to note, it is presented at cost less the charge for accumulated amortization, so it is not fair value. Total assets again, $3,038,000. Total liabilities, $1,407,000. That includes accounts payable and accruals, so any expenses incurred to the end of December which had not been paid. That includes trade payables, salary and vacation accruals, and government remittances due, such as GST payable that were collected on dues paid before the end of the year, CPP tax, EI premiums withheld at source. So total amount $190,000, previous year $177,000. Mortgage payable, $10,000. It is likely extinguished by now, I would think. $42,000 in the previous year. And deferred revenue, $1,207,000, previous year $1,192,000. So I think that includes registration fees collected by the college by the end of December, which are for the following year, for 2017. Net assets, which are the surplus of the organization, total amount $1,630,000, previous year $1,358,000. There are two components to the surplus or net assets. There's a balance invested in capital assets, so that equals the total capital and tangible net assets, on the balance sheet on the assets side, less the mortgage, and that equals $592,000, So that's the part of your surplus which has already been spent, so it's not available to spend. The unrestricted portion, or available to spend, true surplus, $1,038,000, previous year $785,000. Any questions on the statement? Thank you. On the statement of financial position? If not, we'll move on to page 29. Statement of operations presents the revenue less expenses for the year. The college follows, like I mentioned earlier, the Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. It's not cash basis of accounting. Revenue are recognized in the period that they are earned, and expenses are recognized in the period that services are rendered. Total revenue for the year, $1,648,000. Previous year, $1,527,000. The most significant component, registration fees, $1,350,000, up from the previous year, $1,337,000. Program income includes examination fees, endorsements, and credential assessment revenue, $165,000, previous year, $135,000. Administrative income, which includes enrollment fees and verification fees, $49,000, previous year, $43,000. And then investment income, $75,000, previous year, $7,000. Reason for the fluctuation, I should have mentioned earlier, investments are presented on the statement of financial position at fair value. Therefore, any increases or decreases in the fair value are recognized as unrealized gains or losses in the statement of operations. So you will see variations in the investment income year over year. So again, total revenue, $1,648,000, previous year, $1,527,000. Total expenses for the year, $1,346,000, previous year, $1,367,000. The most significant component of expenses are personnel expenses, so that includes salaries and benefits of all personnel, $891,000, previous year, $893,000. Administration, $103,000, previous year, $106,000. And then program expenses, $73,000, previous year, $85,000. So those are the most significant categories. The excess of revenue over expenses for the year, $301,000, previous year, $159,000. Other item is the amortization of capital assets, $29,000, previous year, $31,000. The total excess of revenue over expenses for the year, $272,000, previous year, $128,000. Are there any questions about the statement of statement of operations or any of the notes to the financial statements? Seeing none, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Pamela. Are there any questions on the audited financial statements or on Pamela's report? Is there a motion to adopt the auditor's report?
Rodney Hintz, District 2. I move to approve the auditor's report as printed.
Camille Martin, District 2. I second the motion.
It is moved and seconded that the auditor's report be approved as printed. Is there any discussion on this motion? I will call for the vote. The question is on approving the auditor's report as printed. All in favor, raise your voting flag. Those opposed, raise your voting flag. The affirmative has it, and the auditor's report is approved as printed. Thank you for your presentation. We will now look at the proposed bylaw amendments. These proposed amendments have been reviewed and approved by the Board of Directors and were made available for advance review by Clpnm registrants on the Clpnm website and in the Clpnm's Practical Nursing Journal. We will go through the proposed revisions article by article and give some rationale for the changes and entertain discussion. Is there a motion to adopt the proposed bylaw revisions?
Jody LaFrance, District 1. On behalf of the board, I move to adopt the proposed revisions to the CLPNM bylaws.
It is moved to adopt the proposed revisions to the CLPNM bylaws. We will now proceed to discussion on each revised article. Changes to Article 3 are proposed to clarify that applicants who have not produced the evidence and documentation the CLPNM requires to determine if the applicant is eligible for registration, have not completed a registration application, and as such, do not have a right to appeal a registration decision. This change will enhance transparency regarding requirements for applicants and will contribute to responsible use of CLPNM resources. Is there any discussion? Changes in Articles 4 and 5 are housekeeping changes to clarify election requirements and to ensure the bylaws achieve their intended purpose. The changes will clarify that LPNs are eligible to nominate other LPNs to the CLPNM Board of Directors, run for election, and vote only in one electoral district at a time, which corresponds to their primary location of practice. Is there any discussion?
Elisa Weeb, District 2. I want to speak in support of Article 4. The change will ensure that licensed practical nurses who practice in more than one electoral district do not have a greater opportunity to participate in the CLPNM board election process than their colleagues who practice in only one district. This will support fairness in CLPNM elections.
Article 5, Clause 5.3b of Article 5 is proposed for deletion because it is redundant with changes to the bylaws already adopted in 2016. Is there any discussion? Article 6, changes to Article 6 are proposed to clarify that members of the CLPNM Board of Directors who wish to run for election to the office of President must notify the other members of the board prior to the spring meeting in the year in which an election is to be held. This will ensure that elections can occur at the spring meeting of the board and that the President can be announced to registrants and stakeholders at the annual general meeting in early summer. Is there any discussion? Changes to Article 11 of the bylaws will correct an internal inconsistency and clarify how voting during annual and special general meetings is to be conducted. Is there any discussion? The question is now on substituting the proposed revision for the current bylaws. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, raise your voting flags. Those opposed, raise your voting flag. The affirmative has it, and the bylaw revision is adopted. I would now like to ask Rodney Hintz, Chair of the Governance Committee, to give the nominations report.
Elections were due to be held in both districts this year. There was one vacancy in District 1, which covers the area within the Winnipeg city limits, and 2 vacancies in District 2, which covers the area of the province outside the Winnipeg city limits. I would like to thank all those who let their names stand. I will now read the teller's report. District 1, Doreen Mahalas, acclaimed. District 2, Christy Cantello, acclaimed. District 2, Camille Martineau, appointed.
Please join me in congratulating the board members. Thank you, Rodney. I would now like to present the 2017-2018 Board of Directors of the College. Please stand to be recognized. The next agenda item is open forum. This is a time for registrants or anyone present to ask questions or comment on issues related to the college. We are allowing 15 minutes for open forum. Just in addition to the members that were re-elected, Rodney forgot to announce that myself has been re-elected as president. Okay, seeing that there are no questions on the floor, I would like to thank all of you who are in attendance today. Thank you to all of the college staff who assisted in organizing the AGM. Thank you to the Board of Directors for the work you have done this past year. It is an honor serving alongside you. I would ask that you drop off your voting flags at the door on your way out. There being no further business, I declare the 71st annual meeting adjourned. We are adjourned.